Number 10. The smile. At the door. Before the key turned, Carol checked her face in the hallway mirror. Etiquette manuals of the period were clear. A wife greeted her husband warmly, regardless of her own day. She reapplied her lipstick out of routine, not vanity. A tired or flat greeting could be read as a sign something in the marriage was wrong. The smile had a job to do. Number 9. The name that changed everything. Mail came addressed to Mrs., her husband's full name, hers absent from the envelope entirely. This wasn't rudeness. It was etiquette convention, taught plainly in the period's guidebooks. Carol's own name simply stopped appearing on paper. A woman signing her own name alone, in some settings, still looked slightly improper. The name was not a courtesy. It was a record. And once a woman's identity folded into a title, the next rule waited just outside her door. Number 8. The neighbor who was always watching. A curtain shifted next door the moment voices rose in Carol's kitchen. Small towns ran on this kind of quiet attention, reinforced by church circles and neighborhood talk. No one confronted her directly. They didn't have to. Reputation moved on its own, house to house, porch light to porch light. No one had to knock to know. Number 7. The compliment that was actually a rule. A hostess once admired Carol's table setting, the linen pressed, the china aligned. Hospitality guidance of the era prized homes that looked effortless, never labored over. The compliment felt warm. It was also a measurement. Other women were the quiet judges here, more than any husband ever was. Falling short of the standard cost something socially, even if no one said so aloud. The compliment came with a scorecard. That was the visible half of the system. What came next lived somewhere harder to see. Number 6. The coffee that came before her own cup. Every morning, Carol poured 2 cups. His went down first. Hers cooled while she finished the dishes. Nobody had written this rule anywhere. It didn't need to be written. Steam rose off his cup, while hers sat untouched on the counter. This kind of service was simply assumed, never negotiated, never really noticed by the person receiving it. Until now. The rules lived in her kitchen. The next ones lived in a filing cabinet. Number 5. The checkbook with only his name. The drawer beside the stove held that checkbook, printed with one name. Before 1974, banks in much of the country required a husband's signature on financial paperwork, and some lenders discounted a wife's income when calculating what credit she deserved. A married woman could hold a credit card, but often only as Mrs., under his name, not her own. If Carol had money of her own, it still moved through an account she didn't fully control. The drawer slid shut with a metal click that meant more than it sounded like. The checkbook wasn't paperwork. It was a leash. Money was the first wall. It was not the last. Number 4. The fault you had to prove. Imagine a lawyer's letter on that same kitchen table, the paper dry and formal under Carol's hand. Through most of the 50s and 60s, states required proving legal fault to end a marriage, adultery, desertion, cruelty, something provable in a courtroom. Unhappiness alone changed nothing on paper. A woman couldn't simply decide to leave. She had to accuse, document, and often endure a public hearing about it. The law never asked whether she was miserable. It asked what he had done wrong, and if he hadn't done anything a court would recognize, there was often nowhere to go. Some women went looking for a state that asked fewer questions. Number 3. The Reno ticket. A one-way train ticket, folded in a coat pocket, was its own kind of quiet plan. Reno, Nevada had built a real industry around exactly this, a short residency requirement that let out-of-state spouses qualify for divorce faster than almost anywhere else. Whole divorce ranches existed to house women waiting out the weeks. A train whistle in the distance meant something different if you knew where the tracks led. But the ticket cost money, the stay cost more, and the trip itself became its own kind of public announcement. Freedom had a price tag, and a train schedule, and most women never had either. Number 2. The divorced woman's address. Picture a rental office chair scraping against linoleum, a clerk crossing out Mrs. on a form and pausing before writing anything else. Divorced or single women commonly ran into real friction renting an apartment, opening an account, or simply being received the same way at a dinner party. A woman's name alone, without a husband attached to it, unsettled landlords, banks, and neighbors in ways that were rarely said out loud, but were felt immediately. A divorce didn't just end a marriage. It reopened every form a woman had ever signed as someone's wife, all at once, all over again. Which brings us to the real reason marriages lasted. Number 1. The marriage that was never just love. Go back to that kitchen, the checkbook drawer, the ring catching the oven light. Carol, 27, still standing exactly where the story began. By now, you can see what surrounded her. A checkbook with someone else's name on it. A law that asked what he did wrong before it asked how she felt. A train ticket few women could afford, to a courthouse in a state most had never seen. A rental chair that scraped differently depending on the name typed above the line. None of these were separate accidents. They were the same system, seen from different rooms. A woman could run a household, raise children, keep a marriage looking effortless, and still find that leaving cost more than staying, in ways measured in dollars, forms, signatures, and reputation. Many women who stayed weren't simply devoted. They were structurally out of exits. The marriage lasted because the walls around it were built to make sure it did. Forever wasn't only felt. Often enough, it was engineered. Carol closes the drawer, the checkbook back where it always sits, the ring catching the last of the evening light. The apron, the smile, the calendar were rules everyone could see. The checkbook, the courtroom, the train ticket were rules almost no one talked about, which made them harder to escape. If any of this brought back a name, a drawer, or a rule your own family never explained, tell us below, and stay for the next hidden one. Carol was 27, standing in her kitchen in a small Ohio town in 1958, tying her apron before the roast finished. A wall calendar hung by the stove, dinner times circled in pencil. In the drawer beside her sat a checkbook printed only with her husband's name. It looked ordinary. It was part of a system. By number 1, you'll understand why marriages back then rarely ended, even when they should have. Number 12, the apron that was always on. Carol tied the strings twice, out of habit, before the sound of tires in the driveway. Magazines like McCall's built a whole decade around a word: togetherness. A tidy home wasn't a preference, it was proof. The oven ticked as it cooled. A late dinner wasn't read as tiredness, it was read as failure. The apron was optional, the judgment wasn't. Number 11, the dinner that couldn't be late. The calendar on Carol's wall had times circled, not menus. Household advice of the era treated a hot meal on schedule as a small daily test. She checked the clock more than the pot. A pot simmered behind her, filling the kitchen with steam. Being 5 minutes late could start a quiet conversation among neighbors before she even knew one had happened. Dinner was never just dinner.